guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Crank Addict, and this is the channel for crank addicts like me and hopefully like you. Today we're back on this Lamborghini replica, and we've got to do something with this rear frame rail. I was trying to make up my mind which way to go from here. We do the front suspension, we do the back suspension. It was a bit of a toss-up. I almost bought some wheels this past weekend, but then pulled the plug at the last minute. Some 17s. The biggest reason is, well, I'd love to have the 17-inch wheels for the bigger brakes. You know, I want to get bigger brakes on this car, but the amount of room that I have up front in those front wheel wells is minimal, and I was afraid the 17-inch wheel being an extra inch plus in diameter, or in radius, I'm sorry, would give me too many interference issues. The wheelbase on this car is already off like 3/4 of an inch, so I could push those front wheels forward 3/4 of an inch, but that just keeps the existing combination from rubbing on the frame. It won't actually buy me an extra inch to run the bigger 17-inch wheels. So I may be stuck with 15s on this vehicle. Maybe there's a reason people don't put 17-inch wheels on these Countaches. They just don't fit. Yeah, interesting, huh? Anyway, so, back frame. So this frame has been leveled left to right, front to back. It is sitting on my 3/4 inch particle board, which is my redneck build table. And yeah, my plans is to straighten this frame rail out. There's a lot of wasted space in this corner that I want to utilize. So I actually want to raise these rear frame rails here to the height of the body mount. That'll give me a little bit more structural integrity. The rear body mount is here, so kind of here and here and here. This is still a bit higher than that, but I can work with it. And bring them straight off the bulkhead there. I also want to redo that bulkhead. I want to spread those bars slightly further apart. Throw in some bracing going down, get rid of the cross diagonal bracing, because I want to plate this bottom piece. I'm going to raise this one up a little bit, spread them, and then bring 2 frame rails back. I need about 30 inches to clear the engine that I have in mind, plus working room. So I like to get a few extra inches on either side, so I'd like to set these upper frame rails at 36 inches, and then maybe the lower ones around 32. And that'll give me a nice little V. That's a 2-inch difference top to bottom, which will work well with our suspension geometry. Yeah. Plus that'll help to open up this back end here so I can get the exhaust out more easily. It'll give me room on the corners for gas tanks. That's the way to go. All right, it's time to cut some frame. The major downside to working with an existing frame instead of building a whole new frame from scratch is that there's always a lot of cleanup to do on the old frame. Once you cut off the old pieces, you got to grind down the nubs, you got to get back to bare metal, there's rust to remove, paint to remove, old adhesive to remove. You're doing a lot of prep work on these old frames to get them in shape for the welding and the epoxy primer and the final top coat of paint. With a new piece of steel, all you got to do is wipe it down, sometimes take off the coating on the outside, and weld away. Now there's still some grinding and some prep work after that for paint, but it's not the same as dealing with an old frame. So I've got this cross rail now raised about 57 millimeters, which is a bit over 2 inches. And this is the new height of the side body mounts in the back, minus of course a 1/4 inch plate. So I can extend these tubes straight back, the new rails will straight back off this piece, and that'll be our body mount. Simple, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and tack this in, then we'll do the other side. There we go. Alright, well, I've got the bottom frame rails kind of set up where I'm thinking I want them. These guys are 33 inches apart on the outside, 30 on the inside. I'm thinking about doing the upper frame rails a bit wider, probably 38 on the outside, maybe 40. But before I weld anything, I want to take one of these tires to the Corvette and see how it works with that suspension. Oh, you haven't seen the Corvette? Alright guys, well this is my 1972 Corvette Z06 project. It's basically a 72 Corvette 4-speed 350 that I long destroyed the engine many years ago with a Pro Charger and a heavy right foot. And anyway, supercharger sold, the engine sold, the transmission has been sold, and I bought a wrecked Z06 Corvette at Copart, and I basically transplanted the entire chassis onto a custom tube frame using the original Z06 transaxle, and it's a pretty slick setup, but it's got all Z06 suspension all around. So I thought it would be a pretty cool way to see if these spindles will work for the Lamborghini project. The geometry on these Corvettes is really good. The Z06 Corvette can certainly hold its own on a track. I mean, I went head to head with many of those cars back when I was racing the Viper, and they are quick. So let's just pull off one of these wooden wheels and we'll see if this Lamborghini wheel will fit. Yeah, it's the same bolt pattern. Let's just see what happens here. That's not where to go. What would it go? Is it hitting on something back here? I think the spindles may be too tall. Let's pull this out. All right, so get that straight up. Bummers on that, so this is not going to work. You can see where it's hitting right there. That spindle is just too tall. I mean, the brakes themselves are going to be too big for a 15-inch rim, but you could probably swap these out with some smaller ones. I might try a spindle off of a C4 Corvette. See how that goes. The nice thing about these C5s is that the front spindles are the same as the back spindles. That's convenient. And I like all the lightweight suspension components. That would have been nice to have used on the Lamborghini project, but this is not gonna work here. So I'm gonna have to rethink this. All right, I'm trying to tack these rails into place for now. I don't know if I gotta move it later on or not, so let's keep this easy to take apart later. Gas problem. Yeah, I must have bumped the regulator when I was changing cylinders. Well, I better check the squareness before I go on. Alright, well the squareness was about an 1/8 inch off, but now it's perfect. So, good to go there. Eighth inch is not a lot, by the way. It's pretty close. Well, now comes the tricky part. I have decided temporarily to place these upper rails on 20 inches outside dimension, 18.5 inside, but I gotta have them at a certain height, so I welded some temporary stays to help hold this in place. Be a lot easier with the helper. Alright, and that should hold it. This flush, square. Let's try the other side. We're still square. That's good. I need to make sure there's no twist in it. This one might be twisted just a hair. That looks pretty good there. And that one looks good as is. All right. Oh, crud. I put this one hand upside down. Ay, ay, ay. I'll be right back. All right, and we are back to our regularly scheduled program. Notice that all the frame rails are facing the correct orientation, and we have a crossbar in place now. I have checked the diagonals, and they are dead on. What I like about the system, though, what I really like about the system, is that I need to do a little bit more tack welding to make sure this thing doesn't move around. But now that this thing is up on stilts, I place tape next to my stilt on either side, so when I'm welding, if it moves around, I can see it. I can hopefully get the ratchet strap out and fix it before it gets too bad. So that's kind of cool. Alright, I don't see any movement on the tape. That's good. Alright, so I got the upper and lower frame section in place. So now is the moment of truth. We're going to lower this body down and hopefully it still fits. I know I'm going to have to do a little bit of trimming on the inside to clear these higher frame rails, but that should be minimal. I can do that once the body is mostly down so I can get it just right. So let's see how it does. Alright, well, yeah, we're hitting a little bit in the front, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off and tweak the position of the frame just a hair, and then we'll drop it down some more. Hit again. Let's see here. Just a hair. I think that'll be okay. There's some more crunching. What's crunching in there? Alright, so you can see how the crossbar is already hitting against the, we'll call that a firewall. I was planning on plating this bottom section and cutting out the firewall, so I guess I will go ahead and do that now. brace is 14 inches tall. Better cut it conservatively. So I'll cut it to 12, probably 12 inches, just to make sure I got a little extra room to spare. Cut on the bottom. Oh, there's that line right there. There's a line already drawn in here. I'll just cut on that line. Got a big hole in the firewall, so let's try this again. Alright guys, well you can see, here are my new frame rails, and they're nestled up pretty tight against the body here. What I'll probably do is I'll probably wrap them with some saran wrap and then wrap the fiberglass over the frame rails. Maybe, we'll see. I like to get some of these gaps a little nicer, so I might cut up here and screw this down and then refiberglass that. Same thing over here, just a small gap I like to see close up. Little things like that make it look a little nicer, a little neater, a little more professional, a little bit more production. But we are laying on the frame over here. That looks pretty good. All right, the body is back on the frame. Got a small gap at this front frame section here. Oddly enough, the body wants to come forward another inch or so, which is really weird. But it makes sense, because when I took this thing apart, there was about an inch, maybe an inch and a half gap between this cross member here and that fiberglass. I'm not sure why a Provi set it up that way, but it is as it is, you know. So the body is actually scooted back another inch or so. So I will need to make, it actually fits the frame better this way, in my opinion. But I'll have to make adjustments for this rear wheel here. It should give me an extra inch and a half to fit a big old V12 engine in this thing. So that's a good thing. But you can see how nicely those frame rails tuck up against the fiberglass. Yeah, I can make small improvements, but I'm pretty happy with that for the most part. And the cross member goes right about there, about where these old bolt holes are in the trunk area. So that's all good. So yeah. The next step is to fit the roll crash protection against that bulkhead. I'll set that in place with a body in place so I can get the angle just right. It'll have supports going down to connect them to the cross frame rails here, and then I'll have to build some supports all across to make sure I have a nice solid ladder frame structure. Okay, so it's about time to start thinking about other things that I need, like suspension stuff. So I'm looking at wheels and items like that. Yeah, I've got a couple ideas for wheels for this vehicle. Wheels that will be more in tune to what this car was originally instead of those center lines. I like those center line wheels a lot, but they just scream kit car, and I've got an idea of a way to kind of make some aftermarket wheels look decently original for this vehicle. Anyway. So anyway, it's time to start thinking about suspension for this vehicle. I have been thinking about suspension in the back of my brain, but we got to start thinking about spindles. The rear spindle, of course, being capable of handling, drive axle. Front spindles as well. They need to fit 15-inch rims, obviously. And of course, I'd like to get some rims that are more similar in dimensions and offset to the original Countach wheels. The center lines that came on this are not correct. The back ones are 15 by 11, which is a weird size, and it has way too much negative offset. So they just look too deep. The front wheels, centerline wheels, were 15 by 7s, and the offset was pretty good, but they're just really too small. So I want to get some 15 by 8s, maybe 8.5 up front, and some 15 by 12s in the back, and spec them out with a proper offset. And I need a design that will look good with this Countach. I don't want it to look too out of place, so you've got to think about that. Anyway, lots of things for me to think about, lots of things to ponder. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, time to do so, as these videos are popping out weekly right now. And hit that like button, comment, let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.